You're listening to the SEC Week 5 preview and predictions episode of the SEC Recap Podcast. Hey, if you love college football Saturdays as much as I do, hit subscribe so you never miss a breakdown. Welcome back to the SEC Recap Podcast. It is Week 5, and we've got a loaded slate, some huge matchups to preview. As usual, I'll be going through the PRecap Matchup Predictor, model outputs, and team stats to break down each game for you. For each matchup, I'll kind of show you what the model is projecting as win probabilities, expected margins, those key stat advantages behind those predictions. And of course, I'll chime in with whether I agree with our model or if I'm seeing a different outcome. Let's dive in. Hey, if I am right and you are wrong this week, you owe a like and subscribe on this video. A like on this video, a subscribe to the channel. All right, we have got so much to get into, y'all, so we're going to jump in right now. And we're starting with the noon games, working our way into the afternoon and evening games. So first up, we got Notre Dame at Arkansas. This is a top 25 Notre Dame team stepping outside the conference just a little bit. Half in, half out, a non-SEC team in the mix. As the Fighting Irish travel to Fayetteville to take on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Now, this is a fascinating matchup, and our model sees it essentially as a toss-up, not the way a lot of people are picking this, giving Arkansas a 56.7% win probability and has Arkansas roughly by 1.8 points, about a 2-point margin. In plain English, that's basically saying Arkansas is actually a very slight favorite at home. Now, Notre Dame comes into this game obviously ranked number 22. Their season has not gone to plan so far. The Irish are just 1-2. Meanwhile, Arkansas is 2-2 and unranked, having dropped their last two games in fairly close fashion. So we're going to talk stats because there are some surprising ones here. Let me maximize this for you all. By the way, if you're not here on YouTube and you're just listening in audio form, head on over to YouTube or Spotify where you can get this in video form. I got my matchup predictor graphics on screen here as we talk through it. As always, I post those on Twitter for you as well. So the Razorbacks boast one of the better offenses in the country statistically. Yes, Arkansas, perhaps not a team many expect to light it up. They are averaging 552 yards per game, which is 8 in the FBS. They're scoring 43.5 points per game as well. That offense is very balanced. It is very explosive. Big reason is the quarterback, Taylon Green, who fits in very nicely with that system under Bobby Petrino. Green has thrown 12 touchdown passes already, though he does have 4 interceptions to go along with that. He even leads the team in rushing yards. A true dual threat at quarterback. As a team, Arkansas is putting up over 324 passing yards. That's good for 15th in FBS, and 228 rushing yards, which is good for 20th in the FBS. Those numbers are pretty eye-opening. These are top 20 in both passing and rushing yards. It's not often you see that balance, even in really good offenses. Basically, Arkansas can hurt you in multiple ways. Green can air it out. You know, he's got Omega Blake averaging 25 yards per catch, and he can tuck it and run for some big-time gains. Now, let's talk Notre Dame. And that defense, unfortunately, for the Irish has been a sieve this year. They've been very, very porous, especially against the pass. They're allowing 397 total yards per game, which is good for 100th nationally. And a lot of that is through the air. That pass defense is a shocking 132nd. They're basically last, giving up 289.3 passing yards per game. If you have the 132nd ranked passing defense, and now you're about to face one of the top 15 passing offenses, that is a major red flag. Major red flag, okay? We saw Notre Dame struggles firsthand in that loss to Texas A&M a couple weeks back. A&M's freshman QB just carved them up. The Irish also gave up 30 points to Purdue in a shootout win last week. This is not the Notre Dame defense of old, right? Teams have been moving the ball on them with relative ease, and this model certainly takes that into account. Hence, you see the lean toward Arkansas, despite those betting lines that you'll see on FanDuel and some of those other sites laying points with Notre Dame, like quite a few more points. This is not just a one-sided story, though. Notre Dame's offense is perfectly capable of winning this game. As we know, Arkansas's defense has myriad issues. Notre Dame is averaging 40 points per game. That's good for 26, almost top 25 in the FBS. So they can score. CJ Carr is at the helm of this. He's shown flashes. They put up 56 on Purdue in a pretty balanced attack. Now, they aren't as explosive as Arkansas on paper. Even though Arkansas does have a slight delta, I'm wondering, actually, I think Notre Dame might. I need to go back and look at this because it's showing the delta for explosiveness in favor of Notre Dame. I need to go back and look at that. But the Arkansas defense is 83rd in yardage allowed, which is like a little worse than average, right? Average at best. And they're 111th in defensive third down conversions. They're allowing opponents to convert nearly 46% of the time. Meanwhile, Notre Dame is converting third downs at a rate of approximately 50%. So they should be able to sustain some drives here, keep that offense on the field, and take advantage of a pretty mediocre Arkansas defense. So I actually find myself agreeing with the model's lean toward Arkansas. And it's really just mostly due to matchups. Arkansas' strength, that passing offense, is aimed right at Notre Dame's most glaring weakness, and that's the pass defense. Also, I think this game means a ton to Arkansas. It's not often that Notre Dame comes to your house, a ranked Notre Dame. So I would expect a raucous Razorback Stadium for this, 11 a.m. kick. Pittman's squad has two tough losses in a row here. A 32-31 heartbreaker at Memphis where they blew the lead. Think really desperate to bounce back. Notre Dame on the flip side of that, maybe a little bit shell-shocked. This is a team that had playoff aspirations. Now they're 1-2, facing a really tough road test. And sometimes it's hard for a college team to get up off the mat early. Or after early disappointments, excuse me. Now they did look better against Purdue, so maybe they're starting to find a rhythm. But I think if Notre Dame's defense can at least be average, say maybe hold Arkansas to like the 20s, I don't think that's going to happen. Notre Dame's offense could carry them, but I haven't seen evidence that Notre Dame can really slow down a competent offense yet. So I expect a high-scoring affair, probably both teams in the 30s at least in that kind of game. Give me the home team with, I think, the better QB, the more experienced QB, and the more reliable red zone offense. That would be the Hogs. And don't underestimate a home field SEC advantage. A ranked Notre Dame coming in will definitely have that crowd fired up and hungry for a win. I am actually going Razorbacks by a field goal in an upset pick. So after picking Arkansas to lose at Memphis last week, basically the model was dead on in that prediction. I'm actually rolling with the model again this week and going with the Hogs upset at home. Our model is essentially 50-50, and I'm riding with the SEC team at home, baby. Smash that like button if you are riding with the SEC this weekend as well. Going on to our first 2:30 game, we're going to talk LSU Ole Miss. Let me pop this up here so you guys can see it. Another top 15 SEC clash. LSU Tigers visiting the Ole Miss Rebels. Model favors Ole Miss here with that 69.2% win probability. Nice. And projects roughly a 3.5-point win for the Rebels. So field goal plus a hook there. Essentially, the model thinks Ole Miss at home is a slightly better team in what could be a close game. So as we do, let's dig into the reasoning behind that, right? And you can see the key edges there. A lot of them are positive, which do favor the home team. Now, let me put my mug back on screen here as we get into our second one. We're in week 5 now. I talked about this preseason and a little bit into week 1. For people who are just subscribing to the channel or who are new, let me explain kind of what these edges are and how they're used in this model. I'm not going to go deep dive into the math and how the model works per se, but all of these key edges are important determinants in win probability. And in the SEC, especially, home teams have a significant advantage. Call it environment, crowd, whatever you want. That game being played at home carries a lot of weight as far as like those decision splits and win probability. So what this model does is it takes these key edges. So things like EPA per rush, EPA per dropback, early downs EPA, explosiveness, havoc rate, et cetera, right? And it starts to split iteratively on all of these decisions, and over multiple iterations, figure out which of these correlate, not linearly, but correlate to win probability. Then it regresses those edges to determine the win percentage, right? So when you see a lot of these key edges, these statistical edges favor the home team, even if you might see it a toss up on like FanDuel or, some of these betting sites, the Vegas odds, right? This model is saying that when you see these deltas, these differences favor one team, that team is going to win 69.2% of the time. What it does not mean is that there's 100% chance of this outcome. And that's the way a lot of people tend to interpret these types of prediction models. They tend to look at and go, oh, Ole Miss has a 70% chance to win. They're definitely going to win. No. That is not how probability works. Ole Miss has a 69.2% chance to win, meaning LSU has a 30.8% chance to win, which means LSU could absolutely still win this game. That outcome would happen roughly 30 to 31% of the time, okay? So this model might not be correct. No model is 100% accurate. That would be amazing. I wouldn't be doing this on YouTube for free if I had a model that did that, right? So understand, if you're an LSU fan or you're taking LSU in this game, this is predictive based on these key edges, as well as, some other factors that I'm not going to go into. And it's correct about 70% of the time. There's still a probability that LSU wins this game. All right. So now let's actually talk the matchups that I've sort of explained the model. We'll get myself back off here. The most glaring matchup in this game to me is Ole Miss's offense versus that really, really stingy LSU defense. Ole Miss has been lighting up the scoreboards. They average 543 yards per game. That's ninth in the FBS, 44.8 points per game, which is good for 12th nationally. Kiffin's offenses go at warp speed, bruh. The fastest tempo in the SEC, maybe second to Tennessee. Tennessee might have some words with that. They will definitely test your discipline with misdirection and some eye candy. It's going to be Trinidad Chambliss at quarterback. The Rebels have been getting it done with him. He started the last two games due to an ankle injury by Simmons, and he's been awesome. Coming off a game where he throws for 307, ran for 112, and accounted for 4 touchdowns against Tulane, Ole Miss runs this system where it basically doesn't matter whoever is under center. The offense is not going to miss a beat. They're very, very balanced. They can gash you at the run of the pass. They've got like just a slew of transfer receivers to give them playmakers everywhere. Now, countering that is an LSU defense that has been one of the nation's best through 4 weeks. They're allowing just 9.3 points per game, which is top 10 nationally, and only about 246 total yards per game. So this is kind of like unstoppable object meets immovable wall. Who is going to win? Well, I think it's going to happen in the trenches. It's a fast, aggressive LSU defense. They play fast and angry. That strength is in their front seven. Guys like Mekhi Wingo, Harold Perkins, they've been dominating the line of scrimmage. And if anybody can slow down Ole Miss's offense, it's this LSU front. So what gives in this, right? Well, the model is leaning Ole Miss, I suspect, because of some questions about LSU's offensive capability. And I've been very vocal about this. I've posted about this on Twitter and several of my last prediction episodes and recap episodes. LSU's offense is just simply underwhelming relative to their talent. Their efficiency metrics are not good. So a great defense can only really carry you so far. They started off the year beating Clemson 17-0 and Florida 20-10, but in that Florida game, they had 5 turnovers. 5 interceptions, and only 20 points to show for it. So, nobody questions, like, is Garrett Nussmeier talented? LSU just hasn't shown a consistent ability to finish drives and cash in on scoring chances against quality opponents. So they're going to need to, especially in Oxford, if Ole Miss is putting up points. So I'm leaning with the model on this one, and I'm taking Ole Miss, albeit in a close one. A lot of it comes down to trust in the offenses. I trust Ole Miss's offense a lot more right now. They've been consistently good every single week. Lane Kiffin will have some scripted plays, I think, ready to challenge LSU's defense, like they haven't been challenged yet. This game in Oxford, in that home crowd, the Rebels flying around, that tends to create a little bit of chaos. LSU's defense is championship caliber, no doubt. That gives them a real shot in this game. But if LSU can keep Ole Miss in the mid-20s on the scoreboard, I think LSU will win, because I do think Nussmeier and the Tigers can score on this Rebels defense at least a little. I don't know if they're in the 30s capable, but I think they're definitely in the 20s capable. I'm just not sure that LSU can keep pace. The model basically says to me, Ole Miss 31, LSU 27 type of game. And as a fan of good defense, a part of me would love to see LSU prove us wrong and just show up offensively and make this ugly, like a 15-12, just something weird kind of game. Yet, until LSU's offense shows me that they can trade blows in a shootout, I'm going to side with the explosive Ole Miss attack to win a really, really fun win, a barn burner classic yet again in Oxford. By the way, the last LSU Ole Miss game, 55-49. So expect some definite fireworks from this one. Y'all, that's 2 down. We got a few more to go. Let's go to the second 2:30 game. This is Auburn at number 9, Texas A&M. Texas A&M coming off a bye. We got Auburn traveling to College Station to take on the Aggies. The model here obviously giving the Aggies a 71.6% chance to win, favors the Aggies by about 2.5. So roughly a field goal favorite at home. Now, that might sound low given A&M's top 10 ranking, but let's unpack it, right? Let's unpack it. Texas A&M has impressed so far, no doubt, particularly on offense. Marcel Reed has injected life into the Aggies passing game. He's already thrown for 9 touchdowns, just 1 interception. Even led A&M to a very dramatic road win at Notre Dame. By one metric, Reed ranks in the top 35 nationally in EPA, which is a metric that I use for these deltas. It's basically an efficiency metric. This really dynamic offensive edge, I think, is one reason the model leans Aggies. A&M is averaging well over 30 points per game and has multiple playmakers that can stretch the field. On the other side, Auburn's defense has shown vulnerability, especially against the pass. In their loss last week, Tiger secondary got lit up by John Mateer. They threw for nearly 300 yards on them. Auburn's pass defense metrics rank in the triple digits nationally, somewhere in like the mid 100s in EPA per pass allowed. That's a big red flag when you're about to face Marcel Reed and a really talented Aggie receiving core. The model is essentially saying, if Oklahoma could expose Auburn through the air, A&M can too. And I tend to agree. Now, I actually picked Auburn in the upset last week on the road in Oklahoma, and they definitely had a chance in that game. I'm not going to rehash it. I did that on the precap, so that's not what this is about. But that was kind of going with what the model saw from Auburn. The model all season had really liked some of the efficiency metrics from Auburn. However, this week, Aggies are going to be a heavy favorite. Naturally, a lot of that is because of the data that we get coming off of the loss that Auburn had at Oklahoma. Another mismatch to note is in the trenches. Auburn's offensive line looked like trash last week at Oklahoma. They were completely overmatched. They gave up like 9 sacks, 10 sacks to Oklahoma. I think Texas A&M's defensive front has the horses to present similar issues for Auburn's QB. For Jackson Arnold there, I think A&M's pass rush will be absolutely licking its chops after seeing that film. I mean, who wouldn't be? And if Auburn can't protect the quarterback, it's definitely hard to sustain drives and score consistently. You're always going to kind of be playing down in those situations. So to Auburn's credit, though, there's a couple of factors that could keep this game tight. right? I just explained on the last one to see a few of you tuning in here. Appreciate you being here on this Wednesday afternoon. Um, this is a 71.6% chance for A&M to win. That doesn't mean there's a 100% chance that they're going to win, right? It's not how probability works. There is a chance that Auburn can win this game. How could that happen? For one, I think defense. Auburn's defense is very stout against the run. In fact, I think they boast the number one rush success rate allowed. Their run defense has been excellent at stuffing opponents and forcing long yardage situations. If they can make A&M one-dimensional, i.e. like make Reed throw it 40 plus times, that could increase the chances of turnovers or mistakes. Also, Auburn's offense has been leaning on the run and short passes. Jackson Arnold is a QB who often uses checkdowns as extensions of the run game. So they've been modestly effective with that ball control style. And notably, Auburn has done a good job of protecting the ball. So I believe they've only turned it over once, twice all season. They've played pretty clean. So a very clean ball control game plan is going to be the recipe to hang around in College Station. So what's the call? Well, doesn't take much for me just to go with the model on this one. I like A&M to win. Frankly, might even give them a slightly larger edge than 2.5 points. This matchup just favors the Aggies. They're at home in Kyle Field, one of the biggest, toughest venues around. They'll have the better quarterback right now, I think, and a defense capable of exploiting Auburn's weaknesses, namely that offensive line. And unless Auburn's offensive line has a night and day improvement or they find a way to force multiple turnovers on defense, it's really hard for me to see them leaving College Station with a win. So give me Texas A&M to remain unbeaten with that passing game leading the charge. And just as a quick aside, if Auburn does shock us, it probably means their defense played lights out. I mean, maybe held A&M to under 20 points. Maybe they got a special teams or turnover touchdown. It's kind of weirdness I think it's going to take. Not expecting it. Now, before we move on to the next game, quick reminder, if you're enjoying any of these previews, toss us a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us to keep bringing you these deep dives every single week. And with that, we're going to move on to one that I think is really interesting that's probably going a little slept on, and not just because I'm a Tennessee alum or a Tennessee fan, but I think this is a sneaky road game for the Vols as Tennessee heads to Starkville to face a red-hot Mississippi State Bulldog squad. First up, this model favors Tennessee with a 68.1% win probability, okay? And it projects roughly a 4.5 to 5 point win for the Vols. In other words, the Vols are expected to be about a one-score favorite all the way down there in cowbell country. Okay, so let's deep dive it. Why is the model in this case favoring or leaning Tennessee? I think a big factor is Tennessee's offensive firepower under Josh Heupel. We saw it in the Syracuse game. We saw it in the Georgia game, the ETSU game, the UAB game. That offense is absolutely uncorking it this year. Even though they have had some hiccups, it is a very fast-paced unit capable of putting up a lot of points, and they have been outscoring opponents in the first quarter like 21-0. I mean, it's been crazy. On the flip side, Mississippi's strength, one of their strengths this year is their defense. I think the Bulldogs have quietly been one of the stingiest defenses in the nation, even the SEC, allowing just 4.3 yards per play, only around 12 points per game. Now, some of that is overmatched competition, okay? But State is a tough unit. They could keep this game close. It even sets up a classic strength on strength. Tennessee's tempo and offense versus Mississippi State's very stingy and disciplined defense. Now, one concern for Tennessee is their own defense, especially the back end of that, the secondary. This gets talked about a lot. If you're tuning in, you've probably already heard this mentioned on multiple podcasts all season and this week, right? The Vols got torched by Georgia's passing attack 2 weeks ago, and they allowed like over 300 yards, almost 400 yards to UAB last week. Now, granted, Jalen Kitna was a good quarterback, and Tennessee was playing reserve units, but it makes you concerned there. Tennessee currently ranks near the bottom nationally in pass defense, or around 126. They're giving up about 279 passing yards per game. That's not a great stat anytime, but especially not when you're about to face Blake Shapen, who's been very efficient and effective leading this Bulldog Jeff Lebby offense. So the good news for Tennessee is that the Vols compensate with a very disruptive front seven. Those dudes get after it. Okay. Look at this pressure and havoc rate delta in favor of the Vols. That is a very, very good metric, very good pass rushing defense. That Vols front consistently ranks among the nation's best in tackles for loss. And despite what you've seen, they've actually been excellent on third downs. I know a lot of people will talk about Tennessee always giving up like third and long opportunities, but that front seven has been really good on third downs. They can create negative plays and get off the field when it counts, which will be key against, I think, another methodical tempo-based offense that Mississippi State brings to the table. So, do I agree with the model favoring Tennessee by a few points? I do, but I'm actually going to be pretty cautious with this pick. Tennessee has the higher ceiling offensively, and if they find a rhythm, they're going to put up enough points to win. I also trust that pass rush to cause some havoc and maybe rattle Shapen into a mistake or two. However, I will not be surprised if this one is tighter going into the fourth quarter. Mississippi State's defense is vastly improved from last year, and playing on the road in Starkville, it'll start mid-afternoon, like 3:15 or so, but the lights may come on before this thing's over with. With the clang of the cowbells, this is going to be no easy task. If the Bulldogs can capitalize on Tennessee's secondary issues, and if State's own offense, which is also improved, especially running the ball, if they could sustain some drives, they could absolutely pull an upset. Still, my pick is going to align with the model. Tennessee to win, maybe in a closer game that Vols fans might like, but in the SEC, all you need to do is win, especially on the road. All that matters is you come away at the end of the day with a W in that column. So Tennessee to win in a close one, going with the model here. Hey guys, while y'all are here, I appreciate you being here with us on YouTube. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell, because just like a Mississippi State cowbell, you don't want to miss the noise when we recap all this stuff on Sunday night. Now, we're going to move on to the heavyweight bout of the weekend. This is number 17, Alabama at number 5, Georgia. This is the SEC's marquee showdown. According to our model, I can see some folks cringing at home, right? I'm going to go into this one. All right? This game might not be as close as the rankings suggest. The PRecap model is heavily favoring Alabama. Now, I'm going to try to unpack that the best I can, but I don't have a good answer for you, okay? This is giving the Crimson Tide an 87.8% win probability, projecting about a 10.2 point margin in Bama's favor. Yeah, you heard that right. The model thinks Alabama could win by around 10 points on the road in Athens. Obviously, this raised my eyebrows. Okay, I'm sure it's raising the eyebrows of some of you folks tuning in now. And I'm sure Georgia fans are going to take issue with it. So put the pitchforks away, right? Let's break down why the model, not necessarily me, is so bullish on Bama, okay? One reason that it's taking into account is recent performance in history. So Alabama, after that stumble in week 1, that ugly loss to Florida State, has looked more like the Alabama we expect, okay? They've since blown out to opponents. Yes, it was UL Monroe and it was Wisconsin by scores of 73-0 and 38-14, respectively. Over those first 3 games, Alabama is averaging 42.7 points per game on offense and giving up only 15 points on defense. Still a very good defense. These are elite numbers, even if one of those games was against an FCS team, okay? So the offense under DeBoer, helmed by Ty Simpson, is clicking. He's been 9 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions through 3 starts. He's pushing the ball downfield. Alabama is averaging over 13 yards per pass attempt, showing big play passing attack capability. And a huge part of that is, of course, what Ryan Williams brings to the table. He's just an explosive play waiting to happen. We saw it 2 weeks ago when Williams put up 165 and 2 tutties against Wisconsin. So Bama's passing game looks dynamic. How did Tennessee exploit Georgia 2 weeks ago in Knoxville? It was deep balls. It was the passing attack. Okay. What the model is seeing that Alabama can do is a lot of what Tennessee did to Georgia. And Tennessee, were it not for a missed kick, wins that game. And we're talking about Tennessee and Georgia both very differently here. Meanwhile, Georgia's defense, usually their calling card, has shown some cracks, especially in the passing game. They gave up 41 and nearly 500 yards to Tennessee in that 44-41 overtime win in week 3. Now, that game was on the road, but still very uncharacteristic to see the Bulldog secondary get shredded like that. Okay. Overall, Georgia's defense allowing about 18 points per game. That's good, but it's not as lights out as they've been in recent years. Their pass defense in particular is allowing 217 yards per game, which is about middle of the pack, maybe worse by Georgia standards traditionally. The model likely sees Alabama's 335 plus passing yards per game and 42-point scoring average and think that Alabama is going to move the ball with the same efficiency on this Georgia defense. But I am not going to sell Georgia short. The Bulldogs are 3-0. They're ranked number 5 for a reason. Kirby Smart's team is coming off a bye week, as is Alabama. So they've had extra time to prep for this one. Georgia's offense has been quite potent itself, 39 points per game, 470 yards of offense on average. They're very, very balanced, roughly 261 passing yards, 209 rushing yards per game. In his first year as the starter, Gunnar Stockton has been really efficient. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, some absolute dimes. And he adds a running element that Carson Beck just didn't really bring to the table last year for them. He's already rushed for 3 touchdowns and 124 yards. So Bama's defense is going to have to account for his legs. And speaking of defense, Georgia may have yielded yards to Tennessee, but they're still pretty damn good in the trenches. They're allowing only 82.7 rushing yards per game. That's a top 10 run defense. If they can make Alabama one-dimensional and put the game on Ty Simpson in a hostile environment, I think that's to Georgia's advantage. Remember, Simpson has yet I'm not going to say he has yet to play a true road game. They played, Florida State was a road game, so I didn't mean to say that. But I think playing between the hedges at night in the SEC at Georgia, Bama, Georgia, that's going to be trial by fire. That's as big as it gets. One more factor, and something that the model tangentially can factor, is the psychological edge. It's the psychological edge. Alabama has largely had Georgia's number over the past decade plus. The Tide have won 9 of the last 10 meetings against Georgia. The lone exception was that national title game. And get this, Georgia has not beaten Alabama in Athens since, 2003? I'm sure Kirby's mentioned this, right? I'm sure he's mentioned it to the team. The Bulldogs are hungry to end that streak, to end that drought. The home crowd will be fired up. Georgia knows this could be a statement win to cement themselves as a playoff frontrunner and could be one of the best wins of the year of any team in the FBS to date. Now, does my gut agree with the model's confidence in Alabama? Not entirely. I actually think I do lean Alabama here, but I think it's a lot closer than a double-digit spread. I think the model might be a bit over-enamored with Bama's statistical profile, which is skewed by that 73-0 game. So I expect a tight heavyweight fight. Alabama's offense has the edge in the passing game. And I do trust Ty Simpson to protect the ball, but Georgia's ability to run the ball, man, that offensive line is good. They showed that against Tennessee when they just wanted to sustain a drive and run it down your throat. They could 4, 5, 5.5 yards a carry. Can they do it against Alabama? Well, this is an Alabama defense that gave up 230 rushing yards in a road game at Florida State. That would be a concern if I'm Alabama. If Georgia can pound the rock, chew clock, keep Simpson on the sideline, I think this game definitely swings in Georgia's favor. Let's not forget the turnover margin either. Alabama's -2 on the season in turnover, whereas Georgia's slightly positive. So in a game this evenly matched, a turnover or special teams play could decide it. All that being said, I'm going to stick with Alabama as my pick. I think Ty Simpson's poise and that array of playmakers will find a way to score just enough. I mean, when you've had somebody's number for this long, it's as mental as anything gets in this game, right? And the Crimson Tide defense, like, while maybe not vintage Nick Saban dominance, I think they're opportunistic and fast. I see something like a one-score game deep into the fourth quarter, Bama making a key red zone stop or a key drive to pull it out. So I'm going to take Alabama, but in a thriller, this is one where I'd gladly take Georgia with, plus 10 if I were betting. Obviously, this is not a betting spread. This is just my model's point margin because that is really, really high. So don't think it's going to be quite that large, but straight up going Bama. Can't wait for this one. Hit that subscribe button like Alabama hits the transfer portal. And let's head over to Columbia, South Carolina for the last matchup we're going to cover here. This is Kentucky at South Carolina. We're going to kind of come down a little bit after that Alabama, Georgia preview. Last and most definitely least, a pivotal game for these two SEC programs trying to make something happen. Kentucky Wildcats at South Carolina Gamecocks. This is probably about as even as it gets, honestly. The model likes South Carolina at home, 57.1% win probability, and a projected margin of just 1.3 for the Gamecocks. That basically is a toss-up, okay? Don't read too much into like the 15 or so percentage point difference. This is a toss-up. It's a 1-point game on paper. So expect a tight win in Columbia, I think. Could be an ugly one, could be a rock fight. Let's compare the teams. South Carolina's 2-2, 0-2 in the SEC. They had a really slow start offensively. They're coming off losses to Vanderbilt and Missouri, averaging only 300.5 yards per game. That's 122nd in FBS and 22.3 points per game. And the problem has been the run game, or I should say the lack thereof of a run game. The Gamecocks are putting up a mere 80 rushing yards a game. That's 130th nationally. They just haven't been able to get anything going on the ground. Lenore Sellers certainly has had moments. I think they're asking him to do too much, and he can't do it all. Without a run game to kind of help, a lot falls on his shoulders, and their offense has been inconsistent and just struggled to stay on the field. That's reflected in their average time of possession, just 25 minutes, which is like 131st in the FBS. They're just not sustaining long drives. But, dude, on the other side of this, you got Kentucky, who's 2-1, 0-1 in the SEC, comes off of a bye week. Their offense is more productive at 385 yards per game. The Wildcats under Mark Stoops traditionally have a physical identity, typically along the offensive line that shows in the stats. They average 214 rushing yards per game. That's top 30 in the FBS. That's their bread and butter, like a power run game, right? Seth McGowan, 275 yards, 6 rushing tutties. They haven't thrown it well, but part of it is they haven't needed to yet. They had some easy non-conference wins that they just kind of ran at will. Cutter Boley, true freshman, he's been okay, not asking him to do too much. 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 278 passing yards in 3 games. They're definitely leaning on the run game and the defense to support their young quarterback. So we have one team that can't run, South Carolina, versus another that runs very well, Kentucky. So how about defense? Well, here, South Carolina has the statistical edge. It's a very disruptive front seven. The Gamecocks allow 346 yards per game and just 20.3 points per game. That's top 50. That's going to be like the top third in FBS. Those are respectable numbers. They were very strong defensively in a win against Mizzou. They held Mizzou to 29 points. Mizzou's offense has actually been pretty decent. South Carolina's pass defense is also pretty solid. 194 passing yards allowed per game. That's going to be the key against Kentucky's freshman QB. Gamecock secondary might confuse them with some looks. South Carolina also has really good pass rushers who can cause problems if Kentucky is just forced into some of those passing downs. Now, Kentucky's defense, surprisingly, has been a bit of a letdown. We're used to Stoops again having like a decently stout unit, but they're giving up 415 yards per game. They've struggled against the pass. Now, um, the run defense is okay. They stopped the run decently, but I think more vulnerable against the pass. Can South Carolina take advantage of that? That's the question. If there were ever a week for the Gamecocks to get the passing game going, I think this is it. If Sellers can make a connection with a go-to target and just take advantage of that, I suspect they'll try to come out throwing, maybe use just short passing games as substitute for the run, because I think banging their head against that Kentucky front with the struggling O-line just may not be the long-term game plan that the Gamecocks are wanting to go for. Now, a couple of situational stats to mention. Third downs of penalties, third down conversions, like that's basically your ability to sustain drives. That's going to play into success rate quite a bit. South Carolina's defense is like not great. They're allowing like 45.5% conversions on third down. They really haven't been able to get off the field. Kentucky's converting offensively 43 to 44%. So if Kentucky can consistently win on third down, extending drives with the run game, they could wear down the Gamecocks defense by the fourth quarter. And also like your penalties time of possession factor. You don't want to have those self-inflicted wounds, those drive-killing holding calls. We tend to think of Kentucky defensively, especially like a more disciplined unit. Offensively as well, especially if you're running the ball, you shouldn't have a lot of pre-snap penalties. So, like, if one of these teams just shoots itself in the foot with some unnecessary flags, there just may not be enough possessions in this game to kind of make up for it. I think all of those little factors matter in these toss-up type games, right? So, models giving the slightest edge to South Carolina, likely due to that home field advantage at night and the better defense. It's prime time, like probably SEC network game. Williams-Brice Stadium can get loud. Look, my heart says South Carolina is going to pull this one out at home. They're in desperation mode to avoid going 0-3 in the SEC. Lenore Sellers is improving. I think he can exploit that Kentucky secondary. However, my head is also seeing Kentucky's running game as the most reliable unit here. And I don't know, like part of me wants to lean with the upset pick, Kentucky at South Carolina. If Kentucky can avoid turnovers, I really like the Wildcats to grind out a win even on the road. I don't think Kentucky's very good, but with the way that South Carolina has struggled, where are they at mentally in this game? It's just truly a coin flip. I think I'm going to stick and ride with the model on this one. I'm going to stick with the Gamecocks at home. Could totally see this being a 27-24 type game, though. Maybe even lower scoring than that. We could maybe see 24-21. A field goal, maybe. Field goal wins it. But truly a coin flip. Either way, one-score game in the fourth quarter. It's all you can ask for as a neutral fan in this type of environment. Now, real quickly, some games that I did not cover in the precap. That is Mizzou. Let's see here. Mizzou hosting Massachusetts, UMass. They are 43.5-point favorites. Obviously, I'm picking Mizzou there. I didn't feel like running a prediction model was necessary for a 40-point favorite. And same, Vanderbilt is hosting a respectable opponent in Utah State. But they're 22.5-point favorites there too. So again, I just didn't see the point in running the model for a 3-score blowout type game. That's going to kind of conclude the predictions episode. Y'all, before we get out of here, let me just say, appreciate everyone who tuned in today and will watch this on YouTube in the future. We'll clip these and just do them as individual segments tomorrow. But before I get out of here, I'm not sponsored. I do all this for free on my own time. All I do is I sell a few t-shirts on my Bonfire store. So bonfire.com/store/SEC recap. You can find all of the great Saturdays merch. Let's show off Oklahoma's here after that big time win. They all come in t-shirt, long sleeve, and hoodies. Guys, the hoodies are my absolute favorite. They slap. All of the stuff is super soft, premium blends. They fit great, lay great across your shoulders, guys. And they look banging as well. I picked up the Tennessee for myself and the Arkansas for my wife. I know somebody's ordered the Alabama. Let's check that one out. I love the way that one turned out. Looks great in t-shirt form and hoodie as well. So would appreciate it if y'all just go to bonfire.com/store/SEC recap. That link will be in the description. Just check out the t-shirts. Like I said, it just goes to support the show. I do this all for free. No ad reads, no sponsorships here on the podcast. So every t-shirt sold. I appreciate all of you. Yeah. Let's close it out there, y'all. You can follow me on Twitter at SEC Recap. It should be a fun, like I said, loaded slate. That's all of the Arkansas, South Carolina. Look, a lot of these are close calls. I mostly agreed with the model. A couple of gut feel deviations. No exact scores for me. Don't want to jinx anything, but you've heard how I see how these games play out. If you think my model is off on any of these, drop me a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe so you can tell me I told you so. Next week, it's going to be an exciting one. Rivalry games, top 25 showdowns, even a little SEC versus Notre Dame. Thanks for listening to the SEC Recap Podcast. We'll see you next time.